In 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Alrighty, everybody, welcome to Weather Center Live. It is 8 p.m. on February 8th, 2024. Let me get my Epic Pen signature out of the way. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Thursday Night Live. We're doing it at a different rhythm lately. We're doing it more or less Tuesday, Thursday live stream sort of event, as opposed to Monday, Wednesday, Friday beforehand. We've kind of flipped it around. We're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday updates, and then Tuesday and Thursday live discussions. We're going to get started here in a moment. I wanted to start off by showing you guys this very, very impressive satellite imagery. Just look at how much that El Nino jet just accelerates. It goes nuts over Baja California, Mexico, through Texas, and the Gulf coastline. Right now, we're down to the south of it. We're on the equatorward side of it, which is why, thankfully, it doesn't look like we have a lot of cloud coverage in our area, finally, in Florida anyways. We've been underneath clouds for a large majority of a long time, I'll just put it that way. There's been more clouds than there has been clear skies, and thankfully, we're kind of underneath a little bit of a calm, cool trend. You can see all this nice low-level cold air advection still spilling out of the north. Wow. It's been a very long day. Very long day. Notice I'm still drinking coffee. Still drinking coffee. That's just a small glimpse at how busy of a day it's been. And you know what? We're almost done. We're almost done, and I get to round out the evening with you guys. I don't know if you noticed, but I got a new mic stand as well. New boom arm. I don't know if you guys, I hope you guys can hear me clearly. Clears up a lot of space here on the desk. I can get my notes ready to go. Leave it right there. Keep my coffee in hand right here. You know, everything's nice and comfortable. I know. We are going to talk tropics. We just got to go ahead and get through the introduction. Zenful, welcome in. Kevin, hello there. Pete Berg, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. USA 1, you've changed your name again, but nonetheless, good evening. Nice to see you. Cole, we will talk tropics. How close are we? You made it. Chris, Mick, and Marley, welcome, welcome, welcome. Did y'all hear about the earthquake? Oh, yeah, there was a 4.0 late last night off the Florida coastline, and I was telling Mr. USA 1 in my comments, you know, if that isn't a sign of what's to happen the rest of this year, I don't know what is, because that is wild. That is wild. An earthquake. I mean, we had an earthquake off of our west coast. I believe it was this was way back before I was even in the military. I want to say it was maybe 2009, 2010, somewhere during my high school years. We had like a 5-point something off the west coast in the Gulf of Mexico for Florida one point in time. Long ago. But anyways, yeah, earthquakes can happen anywhere. We're not going to talk quakes. We're not talking quakes, nor are we hyping quakes. We got some weather to discuss, and we've got quite a bit of weather to discuss. First and foremost, like I said, big old subtropical El Nino jet. This thing's going to take hold, and we're going to be within the final hoorah of the El Nino winter season as we get into the second half of February. Can you guys believe it is already February 8th? Can you believe that? I honestly, it's a struggle to wrap my mind around that it's already been 8 days since my birthday. It's ridiculous. All the anticipation for big days, and then they're gone just like this. So El Nino has really taken command of our weather pattern. We're flipping the script. You can see, as I've mentioned in previous video segments, we finally have that upper level blockage, that traffic jam over Central Cone is completely cleared out, and we have our upper low centers just kind of walking across the country. We have look at these embedded vortices just dancing around one another. We have a very impressive satellite imagery this evening, guys, and that's why I wanted to start here. We have one low vortice here, we have one low vortice here, we have one trying to spin up right there. We have just a parade of embedded lows spinning around one another in the cold sector of this polar front jet. That's another very awesome thing you can see on this satellite shot, is you can see where our polar front jet is, right in through here. And then you can see our subtropical jet with all this good upper level transverse banding that you're getting in the cloud cover here. So we have dueling jet streams, that's for sure. Dueling jet streams. And notice I drew the jet right through this puppy right there. That's going to be our first winter storm that we really need to talk about tonight. And that's where a lot of our energy is going to be focused on, because as this continues to spill through the desert southwest, they're already getting lots of snowfall out there. I believe Flagstaff is in for several inches of snow. Northern Arizona University out there, they're getting lots of snowfall right now. And that's just going to continue to transition across the Four Corners area, try to bring a little bit of increased snowfall to northern New Mexico before emerging over the southern plains. And then once it does, we're going to see that continued interaction with our polar front jet moving in over the west coast, as well as a little bit of intensification and enhancement from our subtropical jet. So that's why things are going to get very dicey as we go over the next 7 to 10. Look at that. There's another low vortice right there. I didn't even notice that. Another little weak low pressure right there moving through the Pac Northwest into the Snake River Valley of Idaho, right over top that area right now. Crazy. We have several different lows out there just kind of kicking it and chilling. That's awesome. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes now. So then we can get to the tropics. I know there's a few people in here who are going to completely tune out what it is we're going to talk about here in a moment. We just want to hear tropics. But you know what? We'll get there. We'll get there. So there's our first big old low pressure system that's been dumping snow for Montana, the Dakotas. Will start to dump snow for Minnesota as it continues to transition off to the northeast. You're going to get that wraparound snowfall effect. Same thing with Wisconsin. And then across the Rockies where that trough is, whatever moisture is out there over the Rocky Mountains, you're going to get snow. You're definitely going to get snow, and that snow is going to continue to do its thing, because right now this is what the pattern looks like, more or less. We have a bit of a ridge building out over the east. That same ridge that tried to stop everything up, that was once positioned over the central United States, central Canadian provinces, it is now moving off to the east and becoming a lot more broad in amplitude, allowing the pattern to kind of free up. And that's why we also have these low pressure systems, these low height centers just kind of dipping down and riding the base of that trough up towards the east, northeast, and eventually the northeast. And I'll also very quickly, I didn't pull it up in time. I ran out of time, but I'll pull up WPC's homepage as well. And I'll show you what we have going on this weekend. So this nose of high pressure here, this leading edge of temperature discontinuity, this is what I want us to all use when it comes time to track the low. Because believe it or not, these baroclinic systems, these stable waves that go into unstable waves, it's surprising that no one has really mentioned this in their forecast updates, but they typically ride your greatest area of temperature discontinuity, or your baroclinicity, that ribbon of thickness and isotherms that I've shown you guys on different surface and upper level overlays. So wherever this thing decides to get going, it's going to follow that frontal system. So this is Saturday at 12Z. We go to Sunday at 0Z. We start to see a little bit of that Southern Plains deep south development. And if you go to 12Z on Sunday, there you have it. That's where that system is likely going to track. And if I were to go just off of WPC's mock chart here, I would form it up through here and expect it to track off in this general fashion. And then the kicker here is there going to be snow? Because that's what everyone keeps talking about. No one cares about severe weather. No one cares about, anything else. No one cares about the potential flooding that this could possibly bring on. Look at all this rainfall. Everyone's just worried about this. Everyone wants to put all the energy and all the time into predicting whether or not we're going to get a tiny little bit of snow out of that, just like this. So my concern, first and foremost, from start to finish is going to be, is there going to be a severe weather threat with this? I do think that we're going to have severe weather with this low. We're in an optimal position. We're going to have plenty upper level shear. We have our polar front jet digging south like so. We have our subtropical jet scraping across the southern tier United States, moving up the Gulf coastline, supporting, I guess you could say, the leading edge of this system, which is very interesting. We have a conglomeration of multiple different air masses. We have a weak subtropical front down here somewhere, probably in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We can't really see it. We don't typically analyze for it. And then we're definitely going to have some severe weather out along the leading edge of it. And then one bit of a bummer, or I guess you could say good news, is even though we have such a buoyant area of warm advection, all the models are thinking we're going to have quite a bit of subsidence in the mid-levels. And that's the cap that we're going to have to try to bust through in order to realize even more severe weather as this thing continues to eject off to the east. Now, I do think we're going to get it. I'm 100% sold that, if anything, SPC should definitely just continue to highlight this general area. That's exactly what I would do. If I were SPC, I would just go ahead and blanket it. I'd give them a level 1 risk. I'd give them a marginal risk. And maybe as far as a level 2 risk from about here to maybe through here, it looks like we're going to have just enough of that enhancement brought on by our Gulf of Mexico waters that we will get a little bit of extra juice in these thunderstorms. And then I would probably give the northern half, I'd probably give the whole peninsula a marginal risk for severe weather. Not even lying. I would, you know what, I'd just go ahead and do, like, if that would be my level 2 risk, this would be my level 1 risk right in through here. That'd be my level 1. Just because we are going to have fairly clear skies over the Florida Peninsula as we go into this weekend and early next week. We're not going to have as much interference potentially provided by that stratiform overrunning setup right there that's already establishing itself. You guys can see it right in through here. This is an air mass return flow type setup interacting with very, very weak remnants of cold air trying to trudge its way out of the northwest. And then as that frontal line really gets closer and closer to all that return southerly flow, that fire hose effect of moisture out of the south, that's when we start to get really good entrainment of our thunderstorms and our shower activity. So I would not be surprised, honestly, if they highlighted maybe a level 1 risk all through here, because you could definitely see some stronger storms intensifying on the leading edge of that cold nose, as I'll call it. And yeah, so there you have it. We'll look at that. And now let's go back to our models. So here we go. You can see all that very, very good boisterous moisture advection occurring along the backside of that high pressure that slowly spills to the south of Bermuda. This bad boy right here is what I'm looking at. That clockwise rotation is just stirring the pot, bringing up all that enhanced activity from the south. And, you know, another reason why I think that maybe our models are, you know, kind of trying to make it out as if we're not going to have as much buoyancy is because we have all of this dry air moving down towards the south, the modified polar air. Let me see if I can choose the region. Let's go down to Western Atlantic. Will this do it? Yeah, here we go. So I think another reason why our models are thinking we're not going to have as much buoyancy surging back to the north is because if you look at this cold pool right here just surging off to the south, that provided the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, all the way through Haiti, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. They're still getting it down there in the Lesser Antilles. They got a lot of really intense activity with this. That's for sure. A lot of really intense activity. And I do believe that maybe that's also why our models are thinking as we get that southerly return flow, you can kind of already see it trying to set up over the Gulf of Mexico. If you look in close, you can see the very, very low stratus clouds trying to dive back up to the north. Some closed cell cumulus, it looks like, or some closed cell straticue is what I should say, spilling up towards the north. So that's why maybe the models are thinking that we're not going to have a whole bunch of enhancement as that high pressure establishes itself right about here, whereabouts, and then tries to mix that back to the north. We're just not going to have anything available down there to bring up. So here we go. There's 72 hours out. Sunday is when we're expecting cyclogenesis. The Euro's going crazy with snowfall. Euro's thinking that Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, parts of New Mexico are really going to get it in terms of snow. And then the snow line just stays very, very, very thin as we transition up towards the eastern seaboard. And again, you know, I'm sold that we will definitely see at least a level 1 risk highlighted. I don't see why we wouldn't. We've had plenty of situations where the models were thinking that there wasn't going to be a whole lot happening. Synoptically, we just didn't have the ingredients to produce very, very textbook style severe weather, and we had it. I mean, that cutoff low was a prime example of it. Nobody was talking about northern Florida. No one was talking about hail. No one was talking about Georgia, and that's where we had, you know, tornadoes, hail, the works. And I've also been looking at D-Cape values over Florida and the rest of the southeast to include the Panhandle, parts of southern Alabama, Georgia, and we're going to have very, very good D-Cape values. So I would not be surprised if we did get a level 1 risk, particularly for our stronger winds, the threat for stronger winds, and I'll show you guys that here in a moment. And then this is where things get very interesting. So we've had very, very, very weird back and forth with our models in terms of this second big old thing. That's what I'm calling it, this big old blob that's going to come out of the Pacific. If you look, we're at 150 hours out. You can start to get a semblance of the moisture converging on the tail end of our previous frontal system and subtropical jet-driven Pacific moisture. You go to 174 hours and you're really beginning to see it manifest itself over Mexico, the Yucatan, parts of Central America. You go to 198 hours out and that plume is becoming more and more readily apparent. And then if you go all the way towards the tail end, take a look at this low pressure system that's really rapidly intensifying over the deep south. And then this is where it gets very, very interesting with this second system. And I'll show you here on the GFS in a second. But if you notice, this high pressure up here and these very weak, unstable waves that are running down this front or the back side of this high pressure, bringing down even more cold air, is going to be pivotal in exactly what shakes out here. Because I already do think that if this first one doesn't give us very, very much severe weather, this one will. This one definitely will. All right, let's move on to our GFS. Let me pull it up front and center. We'll use the 12 Zulu GFS. And we'll start off with actually our temperature advection chart. I want to show you guys why it is I'm a little more concerned about this next system. So obviously there's the first one, decent setup. Got our warm sector, cold conveyor, nice little area where we could possibly see some snowfall. I don't know if we're going to get a lot of it because here's our 0 degree line at 850 millibars. Our low pressure is right here, and our warm sector is going to be out across the mid-Atlantic states. So we might not get but maybe a small band of snowfall at best. I've been looking at the SREF, the HREF, as well as our NOAA blend of models, which I'm so glad weathermodels.com has that now. I'm so excited. It's a wonderful model. I love to use it. It's a great ensemble tool. Crazy Path WT. Yo, can you talk about North Carolina, which is like 260 hours off? Do you think Charlotte will see North? So Crazy Path, we're getting there. We're slowly getting there. Just rock with me. Amanda Kirby, welcome in. Let's see, who else? Who else did we see? Daniel, welcome, welcome. Judy, thank you very much for joining us. No problem at all. Glad to see you here. Kevin, good day. Good to see you. Thank you very much for joining. John, good night. We enjoying the raid in Antigua. Welcome in. It's good to see some of my old viewers from out in the Lesser Antilles popping up too. We're going to be talking about you guys tonight, so definitely stay tuned. We're only 16 minutes into the live. We have a lot to cover. So anyways, let's keep the train rolling. As we continue to progress through time, we have our first bout of cold air come through. Now, I'm going to fast forward very quickly. Now, see this. This is why I'm concerned about this. So check this out. Right about now, it's all smothered by the higher terrain down here. This is all mountains. That's why you can't see any wind barb data, any temperature data down there. But as you move through time, you can see this warm air advection already occurring across the Gulf of Mexico. Our new low-pressure system is forming right along the Texas and Mexico border here. And what I'm very concerned about is take a look at all this very, very intense cold air advection that's occurring down here over the Central Plains. We have another little weak, unstable wave trying to form up right there. You have a warm sector, a warm front, and then you have a cold boundary, a very strong one with that. And so I'm going to very slowly click through time. We'll stop the clock here. We have a very, very textbook front range cold plunge going on. That's what we used to call them. Front range cold plunge, to where it's going to ride down the lee side of the Rocky Mountains, the leading edge of our Rocky Mountain range. And you can see all the higher terrain once again kind of blurs out our wind barbs out here. This is where you get those backdoor cold fronts through southern New Mexico, southern Arizona, and you'll actually get easterly post-frontal winds. But anyways, little fun fact, here's our low down here, and since it is 100% subtropical jet supported, notice we don't have very much cold air with it. We have a lot of warm air, very good boisterous warm air advection. Look at the difference here. You have very, very weak isothermal packing right in through here, but then look, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3. Good warm air advection out along the leading edge of it. And then watch as we continue to go a little bit further through time. 1, 2, 3. This is where it becomes very, very concerning because we actually had what's called a frontal merger effect happen here. Now look at how much more cold air advection we have occurring over those hot Gulf of Mexico waters. And when I say hot, guys, obviously, hot is relative. I'm not talking boiling hot tub, pot of water style. I'm just saying it's much warmer relative to what the landmass is probably going through. And now look at how we already have a bit of a low-level jet and some shear occurring out ahead of it, with lots of very good warm air advection over the Carolinas, over Georgia, over the Florida Peninsula. You take it through just a couple more clicks, and there you have it. Now we have lots of really good air mass conflict going on. We have a low-level jet establishing itself for sure, especially up along the eastern coastline of South Carolina, North Carolina, barely dodging an area just off the coast of Virginia and further into the northeast. And if you switch back over to mean sea, actually, we'll go to the radar. There you go. That's that's looking real sporty. That's looking really sporty. Definitely big time weather impacts with this. And if I go up to the upper levels and we look at our 500 millibar heights, notice how we have a lot of really good cold air on the back side of it and really good warm air on the front side of it. And this is further reinforced if I go over to our 250 millibar wind. Look at that. I mean, it's a neutral tilted trough, or it's a neutral trough, but at the same time, we have our polar front energy dipping south. We have our El Nino jet down here troughing with it. And look at all this really good diffluence out ahead of it. And I'll use a yellow marker to show you guys right here. All that wonderful fire hose of diffluent flow, for sure. And so, yeah, this is the one that I really do believe we're going to have to pay close attention to. It has not stopped trending at all. It is still out there. The one area that I'm kind of confused about is why we're going back and forth so bad with our Arctic air. If I go back to 12 Zulu on Wednesday when I made my video, look at that. There's our Arctic air, big time Arctic air, and this would probably be even worse. So, technically, this 12Z scenario here is actually a better case scenario because we don't have as much dense cold air. If this scenario were to shake out 24 hours prior, where we have an Arctic air mass moving across the Central Plains trying to feed into this system, all hell's going to break loose. Because look at the difference. All you need to do is look at this chart, and you could if you can't forecast severe weather, winds, heavy rain, snow off of this, you may as well just hang up your meteorology coat and walk out the door for good. Because look at how loosely packed our thickness values are on the east side of this system, indicating we have, good warm air advection, very loose packing of our thickness, of our isotherms. And then just look at how tightly bunched together on the backside of it is all our cold air. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All that really good cold air advection pummeling right up into this less dense, warm equator air out ahead of it. It's going to act like a giant rake and just scoop all that stuff up. But the part that is really, really up in the air, and I truthfully believe that's going to be the final nail in the coffin as to whether or not we have an enhanced risk or we have a marginal risk with this system, is going to be if this is the solution where Arctic makes a return, or is this going to be the solution where we just have polar air and the Arctic doesn't show itself? It just stays up to the north. In this iteration, I'll draw our Arctic isotherm, our Arctic thickness line, 528, 522. This is where our Arctic thickness line is as of 12Z today. Let me go back to 12Z yesterday. This is where our Arctic isotherm or our thickness line is as of today. And let me go ahead and scroll the chart down so you guys can see. Let me undo that. Here you go. Big difference. Big difference. And I know it doesn't look like much if you're just tracking the one thickness line, but you have to think about it. Arctic air is extremely shallow. It's extremely shallow. So you're going to see the lower lying fronts really extend out in front of themselves, as opposed to with our polar front jet, where you need to be right on the leading edge of it to really feel most of its effects. If you notice, our 528 line is way down to the south here. And then our 570 line is right up in through here. So we have all three of our jets converging on this solution. Let me erase this one. Yeah, there we go. We have all three of our jets: Arctic jet, polar front jet, subtropical jet. And you're just going to have utter chaos across the eastern seaboard. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Call it hype. Call it whatever you want. But when you have three dang jets and a big old storm system like this, you're going to have chaotic weather regardless. Big time. So those are the two big issues that we have to watch as we go over the next few days. And it's going to be the second one that I'm really interested to see exactly what shakes out. Because this first one, we're so close in time that we're just about all the way locked in. We have all of our models showing wonderful consistency. You go over to the Canadian model. Canadian model is 100%, almost showing the exact same thing as our GFS and our Euro. You go over to the Icon model, and the Icon model is doing the same thing. All of our models are pretty well locked in at this point. You can see even on this 18Z run, same exact depiction, fairly decent frontal boundary or fairly decent frontal system for sure. It looks like it's going to go occluded very early in its life cycle and try to spawn in a triple point low very quickly as it moves up the eastern seaboard. But, that's that. Those are our two bad boys that we're watching big time. Let's see here. Let's go over to the snow. So here's the snow brought to us by our lovely NOAA blend of models. So as you take it through time, you can see the NOAA blend of models is predicting we will get quite a bit of snowfall as that cold air rushes down the lee of the Rockies and into Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. Pretty decent, and then it kind of, stays on the weak side. Very weak sauce in terms of our snowfall. We might get a dusting of snow as it moves through the Midwest. And then up into the Northeast, it'll finally tap into a bit more cold air because that's where all of our cold air has been hanging out more or less. And then it'll finally start to dump some snow. And then, notice the NOAA blend of models really isn't picking up on that second system just yet. Doesn't have anything out there in terms of snowfall. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. This here is also what's very concerning. So no one's really talking about this very much, but look at how much rainfall we're going to get, or at least what the NOAA blend of models is predicting we could have occur over the Gulf Coast states into the Appalachians and eventually down here in Florida. Now notice the NOAA blend of models is thinking we're going to have something trudge its way across the Gulf and drop pretty good rainfall totals, trying to approach the 3 to 4 inch range as it moves across the Gulf of Mexico towards Florida. So it's definitely picking up on something down there. Our NOAA blend of models all of our heavy hitter models are thinking the same thing. If we come on over to, let me go over here. I've been using this tool a lot recently. I love it. Weathermodels.com has really been up in their game. Where is it? Let's see. I got to find it now. Let's go back to EPS Cyclones, United States, and here we go. So this, as I'd mentioned yesterday in my full-fledged video, we used a lot of the probability charts for tropics. We used a lot of probability charts for tropical forecasting and analysis. We have probabilities now, particularly for our low-pressure systems over the United States, over land. So as you move through time, there goes our first system, very rapidly coming together, moving right up that same area. If you notice, the ensemble member thinks really, really highly of the theory that I have of it kind of tracking right over top where that frontal boundary was situated on our WPC charts. And then as you continue through time, we get a little whisper of something moving through the Gulf of Mexico and right over top the northern apex of Florida through southern Georgia, and then it disappears. And then if you come on over to the 1,000 millibar and under, you see that first system plain as day right there, bombing out. And then if I switch back to 12Z, there really isn't too much highlighted over the Gulf of Mexico just yet. Just some very, very light milky shading so far. So still a little ways out. We'll have to watch closely. Here's our control mean sea level pressure. There goes the first system. And then here comes the second system. Kind of a little something down there. Not too menacing according to the Euro. Maybe 1,010 millibar low. 1,010 millibar low according to our Euro control member. So we will have to wait and see. Here's our MSLP, all of our different ensemble members. You can see we're pretty locked in with that first system. And then here comes that second one right there. Kind of a weird conglomerative mess down over the northern Gulf of Mexico. So those are going to be our two big areas that we need to pay attention to. And I'm definitely focusing on both of them, but the second one definitely does look a little bit more menacing than the first one does, at least given the dynamics. Let's go over to, I don't know why this page is so big. Let me close it down a little bit and make sure you guys can see it. There we go. Yeah, you guys can see. Perfect. All right, so here's day one outlook. We had our marginal risk up over the Midwest. Very interesting. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked at storm reports to see if we had anything shaken out up there just yet. I'll have to look here in a moment. But there's day one. Here's day two. Thunderstorm threat, like I said. Day three, the thunderstorm. The thunderstorm threat lingers, and then this is where it gets kind of exciting. So day four, we have that 15% there, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8, we got nothing. Predictability too low on day 5, and then there's no potential on 6, 7, or 8. And then last but not least, before we transition over to some tropics talk, we're going to go ahead and show you some SKU-T data. So let's go to GFS. Let's go to continental US. And we'll go Central Florida, for example. Oh, Alfalfa Bill, welcome in first of all. So you guys did have some severe weather up there. Let's go back. Let's go back to Storm Prediction Center, and let's go to storm reports. Oh, yeah, look at that. Dang, yeah. Yeah. Look at that. We actually had quite a bit of severe weather happen up there. 2 tornadoes, 4 wind reports. Let's see. Wow, yeah, look at that. In Illinois, we had a brief touchdown in an open field. Semi-truck was overturned with damage to at least 1 outbuilding as well as to multiple large trees at this location. Multiple trained spotter visual reports. Reports of a tornado on the ground tracking northeast on the north side of Albany. Wow. That's incredible. Like I was saying, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I think on Tuesday or somewhere I had said it. Or maybe how close are we? It was back and forth in whatchamacallit, in our Instagram chatting. I'd mentioned this is like a small glimpse of springtime right there. Usually you don't get too much severe weather of this nature during the winter. This is usually more of like a spring type setup. So very eerie to see that we had a bit of a spring scenario unfold up there. Very interesting. Look at all the hail reports, too. Well, I should say all the observed hail. Mick and Marley, Naz was still... I'm still sipping on it. I got like maybe a couple more little fine sips in here. So, yeah. Really interesting stuff. Now, let's go and see. If you look at this, this is what our big problem is with our severe weather for the first round. If you notice, we have very good instability trapped in the low levels of the environment. Carmen, welcome in. I didn't even notice you were in here. Nice to see you. Very, very nice to see you in here. So, yeah, guys, we have a very good instability in the very, very first couple thousand feet of the atmosphere. And then very quickly we subsidize. That's a subsidence inversion if I've ever seen one. You got warming with height, and then you've got drying very rapidly, extreme drying, right at about 900 to 850 millibars. And then just above 850 millibars, we have not warm advection, but we have warming with height, which goes completely against thermodynamics in the sense of we're not going to have any instability there. And then we finally go moist adiabatic from the north of that. Or above that. I keep saying north for some reason. And then let's see here. If we go 72 hours out, we'll go 3 days out, and we'll click generate new sounding. I believe this will get us close to it. Kind of. You can see the models are still thinking we're going to have a huge subsidence inversion. Very big subsidence inversion. So if you look, we have the shear component, southerly, southwesterly, more westerly. We have the shear component, but too much of a cap. Look at our convective inhibition over here, if you guys can see it. I believe you can see it. We have almost 400 joules per kilogram of convective inhibition, or SIN. So that ain't going to do it. Let's go time step forward. See? Still there. Let me go a couple more hours out. Let's go 90 hours out. I believe this is when the front will be approaching Central Florida. I believe it's going to be a Monday type of event. Yeah, see, and there's an inversion. So really no... We've got subsidence and a radiation inversion down at the surface. I got to look back at time. Give me 1 second. I got to make sure that I'm looking at the right times here. So let's see. There's our system right there coming in. This would be 0Z on February 13th. This is 12Z on the 12th, so we're almost there. Let's go to 102 hours out. Go forward in time, and let's see. This is now 0Z on the 13th, and the 18Z GFS doesn't give us anything. Doesn't give us any type of shot at severe weather. We'll go one more in time. There's a little bit of a radiation inversion setting up. That's 7 p.m. at night. And there we go. We kind of get uncapped. Kind of. We have no surface cape. We have only 374 effective cape. 86 ml Cape, which is nil to none, and the most unstable Cape is 406. The D Cape is very impressive, though. If I go back one more, if I go back one more time, look at that D Cape. You guys probably can't see it from where you are, but take a look at this. Almost 900 joules per kilogram of downward Cape or downdraft Cape, which is wild. This here, that big old bubble of dry air in the mid-levels. So that's why I still believe we could probably go for a level 1 risk of strong winds. That would be my severe weather forecast. During the daytime, especially if we do get a little bit of surface heating, depending on the timing and the approach of that frontal system and how much warm air we can get into our neck of the woods here in the Florida Peninsula as we go over the last 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours before its arrival, that's when I do think we could see our wind threat really begin to increase. We'll have some very good dry air in the upper levels. So even your weakest of thunderstorms will still have the capabilities of producing 30, 35 mile an hour winds with them as they rain themselves out. Let's see. I know at 12Z, looking at our 12Z data, there were some indications that we could have a marginal risk for severe weather. It's not showing up at 18Z, though. 18Z doesn't have it, it doesn't look like. Let me see. Where do I run time? Let's go back to 12 Zulu. Generate new sounding. What time is this? This is 03Z. Go back to 96 hours. Yeah, see, still lots and lots of dry air. That D Cape value is very high. D Cape value is very high. So yeah, that's enough of that. If we switch on over to our convective products and we go down towards the southeast, you'll see that particularly the Gulf Coast states really need to be aware of the possibility of severe weather. Where is this? There we go. You can definitely tell I'm starting to get tired. So here's with our first system. You can see that a lot of it stays capped until the hottest part of the day. This is the hottest part of the day right here, 18 to 21Z. This is going to be between 1 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the hottest part of the day. And as you can see, we do have some untapped or some tapped. I'm definitely getting tired. We do have a little bit of available energy that we could tap into along the Gulf coastline, which is why at the beginning of the stream I'd mentioned that this area, I believe, should definitely be highlighted. Florida and the Georgia-Carolina area is going to be up in the air. I mean, there is some surface cape that gets up there into Georgia, a little bit that tries to show itself over Florida. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But I definitely think that this area in here is going to be the one that gets highlighted. And then as you roll through with the next system right there, next system doesn't look all that impressive just yet, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see how fast our air mass can modify out. Go back to our convective products and look at our low-level lapse rates. So as I've mentioned, the low-level lapse rate is definitely there for this first system to really produce some severe weather. You can see it there over Florida. You can see it along the leading edge of the system, especially during the hottest part of the day. It's the mid-level lapse rate that's going to get us. So as it gets going, you can see it right through there. Mid-level lapse rates are very, very decent for most of our Gulf Coast states, but notice how Florida is not lighting up this time. Florida has that mid-level subsidence, and that's what's going to zap us. That's what's going to zap us. The lid is very strong over Florida. We'll look at the lid strength index, and you can see that as that system kicks off, we have a lot of energy that is available for our Gulf Coast states through eastern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Even Alabama and Georgia look like they get untapped for a little while, but then look at Florida again. Florida's just going to get skipped over. I don't understand. Oh, it's late for me, especially when you wake up at 4 o'clock every day and you have 1,000 other things to do throughout the day. And you spend all day obsessing over this amongst trying to do your full-time job, amongst trying to do your full-time college work and be full-time family-oriented and take care of things around the house. It beats you down. Either that or 30 is hitting me. But yeah, so there's the first one. The second one looks a little bit more promising for Florida, even though it does try to pull in a little bit more of that capping mechanism. So I don't know. The second one we're definitely going to have to wait and see on. So yeah, those are the big issues out there that we're trying to track right now. Trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. I want to show you guys as much as I can. So the big thing that's going to help us get rid of that cap, that subsidence, is going to be our moist air advection. For this first system, looking at some very good precipitable water values, and then we dry out. And then the next one, we're going to have excessive precipitable water values. So that is definitely more than enough for severe weather. If we come back over here and look at our dew point, dew point's going to be there for sure. The first one, not nearly as much. The peninsula itself kind of stays dry. We get a little bit of enhancement, of our dew point on the southwest and the eastern side of the state. And then the second one, once again, we have really good dew point temperatures all the way through the peninsula. A lot more of those darker shades getting up closer to the 70-degree Fahrenheit mark. And I'll zoom out here. We'll look at the theta E real fast. We'll go continental U.S., and there's our first system. You could see really good warm air advection trying to occur. Just nothing too extravagant. But there you go. There's our front moving through right there, colliding with all that warm, moist air, figurative again, out over the southeast. And then with the second one, notice what happens here. Notice how we have that reinforcing shot of cold air coming in from the back side of it. And we start to get into those pinkish magenta kind of colors. Just wanted to make sure that you guys can still see it. I haven't adjusted my overlay very much. So both of these systems are definitely going to be ones to watch. Look at all that cold air that's dammed up against on the lee side of the Appalachians as well. That could very well, if that frontal system does get going, that could be a big-time icing event for them. Icing and freezing rain event. 30 minutes is hitting me. Bro, you're only 8 days in. It's hitting me. Actually, you know what? I noticed a couple of additional gray hairs in this sideburn. No bueno. Like, come on, calm down a little bit. PM, if you're saying no severe weather here in Central Florida where we live, I would, I'm like 80% of the way there. In terms of overall, there's going to be severe weather. I can guarantee it. If we just had severe weather in the Midwest, for example, all bets are off. We're definitely going to see severe weather with this system. It just might not be here in Central Florida. But I do think my inner Mike Tyson's coming out. I do think that the Gulf coastline is going to have to watch for our severe weather, and then we're still up in the air in terms of whether or not we're going to get snow out of it. Our models are not thinking too highly of the snowfall. If we go to the SREF even, the SREF does an outstanding job. If you look at our CAPE probabilities and you scroll through time for the first scenario, look at how much CAPE we get, particularly for our Gulf Coast states. At least up to 500 joules per kilogram, right up along the Gulf coastline, and particularly through Texas, Louisiana, where we are currently designated at 15%. And then if you go to 1,000 joules per kilogram, you still see that kind of designate for that same general area that we're highlighted for the 15% right now on day 4. So we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens. And then the winter probabilities, if you go to the SREF and you go to the 4-inch mark, the 4-inch does not look very impressive at all. Very, very tiny snow band, very low probabilities. If you go to the 1-inch, however, the 1-inch definitely looks a lot more promising as it starts to transition up towards the central Ohio and Mississippi valleys, into the southernmost Midwest, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I've been examining all sorts of stuff. For anybody, PM, that's your forecast. No evidence for severe weather at all for anybody out there. Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, because that would be an extremely, extremely risky thing to say. Extremely risky. Because that's exactly what you said for our folks up in the Midwest. No severe weather. And we had alfalfa come in and bring our attention to the fact that they had hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes that touched down way up there, way into where our winter temperatures still are. So if it can happen up there, I definitely do believe we will see severe weather from Texas through to maybe Mississippi. The panhandle of Florida and Georgia are still up in the air. That's where I think, if I had to give you guys my official product, like this is my genuine, like if I were at the helm drawing charts for Storm Prediction Center, I would say absolutely we need to push charts that highlight this area. I would absolutely push charts that highlight this area. And remember, guys, the risk that they highlight is not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee. It is not 100%, yep, severe weather, look out, take cover. No, but what I'm saying is based on what I'm seeing, the evidence definitely is there to suggest that if you live in easternmost Texas, southern to central Louisiana especially, and then parts of Mississippi, I would say you should probably keep your eyes open as this event moves through. Mississippi to the east side of the state, southern Alabama, and then especially the Florida Panhandle of Georgia, that's where I would probably give them a marginal risk of, it's like issuing a watch. It's like issuing a watch. If you guys can see things coming together that could potentially warrant a warning, then we'll issue the watch. No harm, no foul. Watches are freebies is how we used to put it in Air Force weather. So I would definitely go level 1 to level 2 for here. I would definitely guarantee a level 1 risk through here, and then I would taper it off from there. I would just go thunderstorms maybe for the rest of it. That would be about it. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. Let's see what we had up there. Let's go to our convective probabilities for up north. Oh, yeah, look at that. That's all it took. We had just a baby pocket of Shref or of Cape right up there. That's pretty awesome, actually, if you ask me. Dang, such a small blip. And we had tornadic activity. Look at all those discrete cells that popped off right in through there. So it looks like the NAM nest a few days ago hit this right on the money. Yeah, look at that. It was showing it, that's for sure. Convective probabilities, let's go surface cape. Oh yeah, look at that little pocket of cape right there, shoot. That's more cape than we've seen in Florida almost all winter time. Did the sig torn come together? Yeah. Nice little swath of sig torn parameters. That's very impressive. I'm actually very impressed. The helicity doesn't show very much at all. See, that's where it gets misleading. You can look at all these different parameters and not see a whole lot. Like the ML cape looks fairly decent. The surface-based cape looks fairly decent. The supercell composite, yeah, that doesn't look that bad. Maybe this is a testimony to what we really need to be on the lookout for. When we see blotchy areas, patchy areas, that's when we need to be a little bit more weary. But the fact that the NAM nest, for example, is showing a nice, clean swath of supercell parameters, sig-torn parameters coming together, these are, I guess, a bit more concrete. Nice little learning lesson. Very nice little learning lesson. But okay. Anyways, folks, we got 10, 12 minutes left of the stream. And I know everybody is excited about this. Ba-bam! Here we go. We're getting into the main event. We'll go ahead and reintroduce the live stream. Welcome to our 8 p.m., or I should say our 8:50 p.m. Tropics Talk. So this is the latest ENSO CPC guidance that we've had released as of today for our good old the Nino out there in the Pacific. And as you can see, the key takeaway here is we're going to rapidly transition, and it looks like, shucks, like once we get through March, April, and May, that Nino is going to go boom, just drop off, flat out, completely die. And then we're going to rapidly see La Nina segue in right at about June, July, and especially into the back end of August and into September. So if I were to give a preliminary prediction, I would say that the first couple of months of the hurricane season from June, July, and August, maybe the very tail end of August, closer to my brother's birthday, August 25th, is when we'll start to see things really go crazy. I do think we're going to have a fairly decent season from June, July, August. That's what I'm thinking. Just looking at this by itself. Obviously, our climatology models, our CANSIPs, our CFS says something totally different. But just looking at the way our pattern is going to set up, we will need to be on the lookout for those stray 1 to 2 big storms as we go through June, July, and especially August. And then September and October, believe it or not, I'm putting it out there. I'm thinking October, the first half as we get closer to Halloween time, is going to be busy. It's going to be really ramping up out there, and it's going to be nasty out there. One thing I noticed that was very interesting here is if you look at a lot of these anomalies, as we get into 2025, we really start treaded back towards a neutral pattern. This is all of our new anomaly and standardized anomaly charts for February that they just released. And take a look at how once we get through the winter season, we start to slowly try to get back towards that neutral point. So, God forbid, we might see a reversal of what happened in 04 and 05. We might have it go from an 05 style season this year to an 04 season style next year. It could be reversed, and that would be very eerie too, because it's 24 and then 25. Very bizarre if it's a 2005 for 24 and a 2004 for 25. I can just see Mother Nature dorking us around like that. So I thought that was also something very interesting. That's not what I wanted to pull up. This here is what I wanted to pull up. This is where we stand with our ENSO index as of right now. We're slowly but surely starting to see, this is a textbook sign right there, guys. That's a textbook sign that our El Nino is eventually just going to go whoop, and it's going to flip around. We're already starting to see the precursors of it. This right in through here where you see those little cooler neutral colors, that is the upwelling process slowly but surely starting to begin. Bring back Michael Myers for, oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Michael Myers is, I'll make sure to give him a call when we get through our first couple of tropical systems out there. But this is the upwelling slowly but surely getting started out there. It's still fairly hot. We still have El Nino alive and kicking for sure, and that's why we have such a robust subtropical jet. You can see all these really warm anomalies just to the south of Baja California and off the coast of Mexico. And then you can see we actually have a very, very hot Gulf of Mexico. That's why we've been seeing so much intensification and enhancement of our storms. And I mean, when I say storms, I mean, whatchamacallit. Lost my train of thought. I mean, just our convective storms with these frontal systems. We got some nice loop current action still out there in the Gulf of Mexico. And then there's our Gulf Stream that's really helping things out. And just look how warm we are in the Atlantic. Let me go ahead and zoom back out. Close this. And let's go to the tropical Atlantic and open up. Look at that. Crazy. Look at how hot we are off of the African coast. The Eastern Main Development Region. That is terrifying if you ask me. And again, I can hear people out there, how is ocean temperatures terrifying? You're hyping. It's like, because that's where all these bad boys are going to be coming off during our La Nina kicking in. And right now, these areas are approaching 3.5 to almost 4 degrees warmer than normal. That is wild. And we know dang well that during a La Nina season, they like to favor that 10-degree latitude line like so. And they're going to drop right in through those warmest waters out there. And obviously, you know, we're in February, so I'm not giving a preliminary prediction or anything like that. I'm just looking at the breadcrumbs and the evidence. And I don't understand. You know, I've been seeing some, and I'm going to get in there. I'm definitely going to get in there. I'm going to figuratively, I'll use this. Because I have a bone to pick with a few people who are on this channel. I'm going to open that can of worms as we get ready to close out here. So strap yourselves in, folks. We're getting personal for a second. It has come to my attention that we've had a few people who used to join the streams having now gone elsewhere, and they are, no kidding, actually talking some smack about this channel amongst other channels. And it's annoying. It's kind of pathetic if you ask me. First of all, I don't know what I did to piss people off, but we have other people going to other channels now and kind of bashing all of us other weather channels for some strange reason. It looks like the warm temperature waters point an arrow into the Gulf. Yeah, right, almost high. Can you please tell me how much snow Connecticut is getting? Eli, I had mentioned a little bit ago in the stream, buddy, that we're still up in the air big time as to whether or not Connecticut is really going to get snowfall. I'll very quickly go back over to that really fast on our NOAA blend of models. And if you look, we're kind of in a bit of a limbo here. The NOAA blend of models is thinking anywhere between 1 to 3 inches, which, is still pretty good. But then we also have all of our other high-end models or our heavy hitter models trying to go all the way up to feet of snow. So we're still a little far out for us to tell accurate snow amounts. But we'll get there. It's Thursday. I think by Saturday is when we'll start to know. Saturday and Sunday is when we'll really start to find out exactly how much snowfall we're going to start getting up there. Because we still have about 3 more days before that snowfall hits up there. So it could be, I'm definitely thinking more along the lines of 1 to 3 inches, depending on how much of a nor'easter that system will pop up as. Because if I were to switch over to the European model really fast, and we go to United States, and we do, for example, let's see, I don't like some of the snow parameters on here. If we go to snow depth, for example, how much we can actually see pile up out there, if you look, the snow depth doesn't look very impressive. The Euro thinks that we'll probably see an additional 1 to 4 maximum inches of actual accumulation, and that's about it. So we're still in the window of trying to hash that out a little. If you notice, the snow corridor here is not very impressive either. It's going to be a very thin band of max expected snowfall, or your heaviest snow band is not very impressive. But all right. Let's see. I swear, bro, I just told him the truth. But whatchamacallit. Anyways, yeah. Oh, shoot, I didn't even know. Pat, you're in here. I'm sure some people talked trash about my channel, too. How it's stupid. It's ridiculous. I don't understand it. I don't know why weather is all of a sudden so trendy and faddish and all this stuff. Like, it's just, it's baffling to me. It really is. I'm noticing all the cat fur in my microphone, and it's bothering me. But, anyways, I'm starting to notice that not only do I have viewers who were very faithful throughout the hurricane season and through January, for that matter, going to other channels and just kind of feeding them the hype and also feeding them the hate and all that. And I actually did come across a video where we were, amongst other channels, thrown under the bus for talking tropics as early as we are. And, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I'm not on here on these live streams mentioning Florida, blah, 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 landfalls and, tropical impact in the Lesser Antilles. You guys are going to get blown up. No, I'm not saying that. But at the same time, you cannot call yourself, first of all, a weather enthusiast. Second of all, you can definitely not call yourself a meteorologist if you can see a La Nina pattern coming for the tropics during hurricane season and mention people... I'm not going to talk about it because it's hype. What? Hurricane season is synonymous with La Nina. Anytime you hear a La Nina, everybody, even the most simplest of Joes out there, no offense if anybody's named Joe in this chat, by the way, obviously that's a metaphor, but none of, even the simplest individual out there who doesn't know butt from elbow about weather will know, oh shoot, yeah, La Nina for the Atlantic, that's bad news. So I don't understand why we're ignoring the writing on the wall. That's an injustice to so many people out there. And that's another reason why I cannot wait. I truly can't. I will grind until I die mentally to get this degree so I can finally come on here and say, yes, meteorologist. And this is exactly what I'm trying to predict and tell you guys. Because this is definitely, that's concerning. That's big time concerning. We have a La Nina coming in. And that's regardless of what happens in the Atlantic. And when I say that, I mean, if we ignore all these other finite variables, if we ignore the fact that our waters are hot, if we ignore the dust, if we ignore the steering currents, the fact that we are going to eliminate a huge variable in the tropical season, El Nino wind shear, El Nino outflow, the fact that we're going to eliminate that one gigantic control variable from the equation already tells me, well, that means we're going to have a 33% greater chance that bad storms are going to form up. And 33% doesn't sound like a lot by itself, but if you subtract 33% from the equation, that takes 1/3 of the whole thing out. Now you're left with 2/3 to figure out in terms of, well, are we going to have warm enough waters? Duh. Are we going to have the tropical energy and the moisture? Duh. So at that rate, you may as well just forecast them all. And again, the biggest thing is going to be the dry air at this point. We know La Nina is going to evacuate us of all that upper level wind shear, so the upper levels are definitely going to be favorable. We know that the waters are going to be very favorable. The last thing we do not know just yet is the dry air. And the dry air is only going to be a protective barrier until maybe July, early August. That's about it. This is going to be a problem, that transition, considering the El Nino initiated months earlier than expected with raw data coming in. It looks like we may have that again. I agree. I definitely do agree with that. Although I will say El Nino is definitely fighting tooth and nail to try to stay in here for sure. Like our 3-4, if you look here, our 3-4 is definitely steadily dropping. It's definitely steadily dropping and getting more and more down into the cooler anomalies. But our 1-2 has definitely gone back up. Our 3 is definitely still going up, and our 4 is still, 4 is kind of going down as well too. And if we switch over to tropical tidbits, and we look at our little mock SOYs down here, you can see our 3-4 is holding steady. It's trying. It's ebbing and flowing. 4 is kind of holding steady. 3 is holding steady. And 1 and 2 is going back up big time. That's probably why we're getting such enhancement right now. Oh, here we go. This is wonderful, actually. Look at this, guys. This is beautiful. I actually like this overlay a lot more than the other one. Take a look at that. So, you know what? We're going to have to watch. Pat, I'm right there with you in this case. Now, if you guys can... Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. I'll zoom in for you guys in the stream. Nope, that's not going to work. Let me pan over a little. There we go. Look at how our upwelling has already started. Look at that upwelling. Upwelling has initiated. So La Nina is coming. And this is brand new, guys, because, you know, we do these little brief updates every other week when we release... when they release new CPC guidance or when they release new ENSO guidance, etc. So, yeah, it's going to be a big toss-up. We'll have to see how much upwelling can get started, but it's already occurring. That is definitely very, very different than what we've previously seen when we've come to examine these charts. And if you look at the 7-day change, there you go. The writing's there. We are already starting to see that upwelling take place. In fact, I think when I get off of this, I'm going to probably post this on other social media. Because there you go, guys. I think that's how we're going to conclude this live stream. I definitely think that's how we're going to conclude it, on that bit of a somber and cliffhanger. No, I agree with you, Pat. I definitely agree. It could be, I don't know about mid-May La Nina, but I would definitely think late April into May we'll be in that neutral pattern. We will be in that neutral playing field to where storms will try to come straight at the Caribbean, the Greater Antilles more than the Lesser Antilles, and especially boomerang towards the Bahamas and Florida. Because that's another big thing, guys, and that's why I'm getting a little pissed that there are people actually out there trying to talk crap about other people who are just trying to examine things. The fact that we're going to go from an El Nino to a La Nina does not only mean no wind shear. Okay, you're thinking about it in the most simplest of ways. What I'm also thinking about is the fact that we're going to have to look at the La Nina and its impact on our steering currents, its impact on atmospheric phenomena that's going to move our troughs, our jets, different things to different positions again, and all that stuff. We also have the PDO, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation up to the north that we have to watch for as well, because if they conflict with one another, we're only going to see those steering patterns become a little bit more favorable for systems to either move west or to go back out into the ocean, and we're going to have a repeat of 2023. So there's a lot of moving pieces that we can start exploring now to at least come up with our best theories as to what's going to happen. And the fact that we already have our upwelling, this is the 7-day anomaly change. We already have our upwelling starting. You can't ignore that. You can ignore everything else. You can ignore all the, 50 hurricanes. 2 supplemental lists. We're going to get wiped off the map. Now, that's hype. That's definitely hype. But the fact that we're pulling up an actual hard analysis page from 18 Zulu today, February 8th, and you could very clearly see the transition starting. This might sound like hyperbole, guys. This is definitely my inner writer speaking. This is 100% not meteorological. This is not scientific. This is all of my inner writer speaking to you guys right now. The fact that we see this upwelling beginning just kind of puts that dark demeanor on the horizon. Kind of shrouds the light a little bit. It kind of switches the game. We went from a chessboard that was set up for checkmate for the opposite team, which was the El Nino shear, keeping all these storms at bay, no matter how many times they tried to play against, the opposite team, the opponent. And in this case, the fact that we're starting to see upwelling in our Enzo regions just goes to tell me that Mother Nature is already stacking her board against us. She's going to have a stacked deck in our against our favor once we get into the summertime, and especially the heart of the hurricane season. So we will see. We had a stacked deck in our favor last year. Now Mother Nature's going to stack the deck. And she's going to be counting those cards, every single tropical wave that pops up out there. So we're definitely going to have to be ready. That's why my biggest takeaway is we just want to have a preliminary plan in place. Just a preliminary plan. And whoever wants to call that hype, you can scratch. That's the polite professional way of saying that. We've got upwelling. Our climo models are in agreement. Our moisture models, our SST models, our pressure models are all in agreement. Lesser Antilles, you guys are up first. You guys are going to be my front line. You guys are on the front lines, truthfully. If I still have anybody tuning in, my gentleman from Antigua, you guys are going to be on the front lines next year. Next hurricane season, you guys are going to be on the front lines. The Greater Antilles, Kevin, if you're still there, Puerto Rico, you guys are going to be our second line of defense, or second offensive line. The Bahamas, Cuba, the Yucatan, Central America are going to be third. And then last but not least, we are going to be home base for these tropical systems. So we shall see. Time will tell. Time is already very telling. You can see here that we are starting to see that upwelling take place. So that tells a lot. That tells us a lot of what's coming. That definitely tells us a lot of what's coming. In fact, you can see it right here too. Look at that. You can see those shades of green starting to form up out there. See the shades of green? You can see the overall anomalies. Let's see. Can I get a zoom in on it? Nope. Nope. They don't have the same overlays as cyclonic weather. But yeah. There's another look at it right there for you guys. A little bit of a closer look. You can see that upwelling already starting to transition. Metallica, Alabama, I do agree with you, yeah. These are all basic stuff that we're going over. We're not making any predictions. We're not really forecasting anything this far in advance. What we're looking at are the trends. And as April just put in the chat, we're looking at a time bomb here. And some people may say that that's hype because we've had some... Actually, have we ever had a La Nina year that wasn't very busy? I feel like there was. That were missing. But anyways, we'll get into it another time, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap the live stream before it gets too late. I have one more early morning to get up for. There it is. We're done. We finished up. I have one more early morning to get going. And then I will be putting out another full-fledged Weather Center video tomorrow. I will record it first thing in the morning. At least I want to try to. I do have some things I have to do, not only around the house, but I finally have to get out of the house and go and do some other things. But yeah. I don't know if we have any Lord of the Rings fans in here, but if you guys remember, I think it was either The Two Towers or Return of the King, where Gandalf was looking out at the armies, and he said, "The board is set, and the pieces are moving." That's what I think right here. So we were talking tropics in December and January, and we mentioned, now this here, we see the upwelling starting up. We see the waters starting to transition. Now this is where we can say the board is set, and the pieces are moving. That's for sure. But all right, folks, we're going to leave you on that note, and we're going to talk to you again very soon. We'll see you tomorrow for a full-fledged segment here on the channel. We'll have a nice update on our 2 big storms that could possibly be transitioning through our neck of the woods, not only within the next 3 to 5 days, but eventually the following weekend as well. And to be determined, we'll just continue to kind of monitor the tropics and our El Nino behind the scenes and exactly see what happens. I'm very excited to see exactly what we see on these charts as we get into March, as we get into mid-March, as we get into April. We shall see. Those are going to be very telling, guys. But thank you very much for tuning in, guys. If you happen to have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop them in the comments section below of this live stream, or reach out to me on my Instagram, my X, or my TikTok. I will always respond regardless of the time. And yeah, that's that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, Friday Eve, and then tomorrow's the big day, Friday night, and we'll talk to you guys again very soon. There was something else I was going to say, and I completely forgot. So with that being said, it is time, guys. We'll see you next time. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.